Hello, it's Mike Mason, Call of Cthulhu Creative Director at Chaosium, and I'm with,
Lynne Hardy, Associate Editor for Call of Cthulhu.
and we are talking about, what are we talking about, Lynn?
Modern technology in games.
Modern technology in games. So I guess that could mean, if you're playing in the modern day, that kind of makes sense. But I guess that could include, telephones in the 1920s and cars and things. So any technology, I guess, in a game. So Lynn, you suggested this topic, I think, originally. What was on your mind when you were thinking about it?
Well, it's something that's come up before on panels that we've done. And people usually say, well, if you're running a modern day scenario, what do you do if somebody whips out their mobile phone and goes to the internet and starts searching for things? So, with Scritch Scratch, we could get around that slightly cheatingly because I set it in a very, very out of the way place in England where mobile phone reception was very patchy. So I asked people to make a look roll every time they wanted to use their mobile phone to see if they had enough bars to actually get onto the internet or to make that call. But how do you deal with it, Mike?
Well, I mean, I have to say, if I say, oh, the signal's patchy with a cell phone, people look at me a bit kind of like, oh, well, you're just making up. I said, well, actually, in the house where I live, if I go to that end of the house, I get no phone signal. That's me today now living in the real world. So,
I have to go upstairs.
So
I'm at the top of a hill.
Cell phone coverage isn't perfect, even in cities. In the middle of a city, sometimes it does vary, and I guess it can vary by country as well. But so I mean, I think that is a real thing. But to be honest, I'm not really worried. I don't worry about using. A lot of this discussion about technology always comes back to kind of cell phones and smartphones, particularly about how they could break the game and people want to kind of avoid their use in the game. I really don't worry about it. I think it's fine. I think it's great if investigators want to get onto their their smartphone and they want to look up the Necronomicon online. Well, go and look at the Necronomicon online now, and you will find a handful of kind of entries and websites that talk about the Necronomicon. Most of them repeat what each other says. It's all obviously fictional in the real world, but they all say the same thing. None of them give you the full text. None of them give you any real insight into it. And if I do that the same with a real occult book, I'm just thinking that, like the Keys to Solomon or something like that, I might be able to find, if I dig deeply, I might be able to find a full text somewhere. As to the provenance of that text and its authenticity, who knows? So it's probably incorrect in some places, or the translation isn't as good as it could be, and so forth. But if you're dealing with mythos text on the internet, it's really in the purview of the keeper. What do you want there to be? I mean, my presumption is there isn't a lot out there, and what there is speculation, lies, and all the rest of it. So use it to feed your plot. Tell that. Oh yes, you found some passages from the Necronomicon online. Oh, and this says you've got to drink the blue liquid, not the red. When clearly drinking the blue liquid is drinking poison, or whatever it is you want to happen in your game. It's a tool for you to use like any other plot contrivance in a role-playing game. So I don't have any problem with them looking things up or looking background of NPCs. Great, give them a little background of NPCs. It's the same information they would find if they go to the library or they ask around the bars or whatever it is. You provide a bit of background if they do the research. It's not going to tell them everything. It's not going to tell them their personality. It's not going to tell them how they're going to react to the fact that the investigator's going to walk in and say, you are the seventh son of a deep one. That's not going to be online. So, plot stuff, it doesn't need to be hindered by the internet. You can actually use it to speed things along, I think. And of course, the other angle is communication. Having the players being able to be in pretty much constant communication with one another on the phone is great. You get none of this, oh, we're going to meet back at the cafe in 6 hours time and then we can all get back together, and you have to kind of contrive people to keep bringing them back together. with in a modern day game, you just ring, and I'm at the haunted house. Where are you? I'm down the road. Well, you better come to me, etc., etc. It speeds the game up.
Oh, superbly, yeah.
I don't see that as an issue at all.
We had a party split up when I was running a game recently, and they were actually sort of like watching each other in real time was what was going on. So when the Greebly jumps out of the cupboard to terrify them, the people who were miles away had to make the sanity rolls as well, because they're watching it on their phones live, which was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, don't be afraid of technology. Make it work for you in the game. It's another tool for the keeper to basically inflict drama and horror on the players. The scenario in Peterson's Abominations, Voice on the Phone, is all about this. It's about a mythos entity kind of takes control of your phones and starts sending you strange messages, then voice messages and odd bits of video that you can use to kind of build the horror. And go, who's sending me this? And as well as misinformation and red herrings and so forth. I guess the other issue people may sometimes encounter is that the players, their investigators get to a situation and go, oh, we're going to call the police and let them deal with it, or let's just call people and bring them here and help us. And again, it's your game, so you decide what that means. I mean, in my games, that means either I can bring in a helpful NPC to help the PCs kind of move forward if they're a little bit stuck. They can contact someone to give them some advice over the phone, or they could turn up an hour later and maybe help free all the PCs who've now been captured and caught by the cultists or whatever. But equally, it's a great way to inflict more pain on the investigators, because if they are calling up the fire brigade or the police to come to the house full of cultists, or the garden shed where there's a shoggoth or whatever it may be, what you're doing is you know that there's a danger in there. You know that you are effectively sending innocent people to their deaths. You are basically standing back going, no, you go in there instead of me. As a player, that makes perfect kind of sense, because you don't want to kill your character. However, your character is basically willingly murdering innocent people. And so as a keeper, you should reflect that back and say, well, you have just knowingly done that. And maybe you could have some sort of sanity roll to see whether they actually go through it, and or whether the common sense kind of cuts, oh, no, don't go in there. Don't stop. No, I'm wrong. Don't go in there. There's something horrible, and kind of redeem their humanity in some way. Or if they let them go in, then it's an automatic SAN loss. They're murdering people by sending innocents into places. That's the way I view it. So again, make it work for you. If the horror isn't, make the horror hit them hard in that way. Have you ever used that kind of trick, as it were?
Well, there's one particular scenario, which is my current convention scenario, and they do quite often. The groups will ring for the police, but they're ringing about a very high-profile local citizen, so the police are very wary of getting involved. And then when things do kick off, there's usually multiple phone calls, which just causes confusion, because the handlers on the phone are kind of like, but we've just had a call about this location. Is this the same thing? It's being dealt with. It's like, no, this is something else. So then they get all sorts of suspicion. They have to make sure that they're not using their own phones, so that they can't be tracked down afterwards. So there was one hilarious one where they were all running around trying to find a payphone so that they could ring someone, so that the police couldn't identify where the call had come from, which again is something to bear in mind if, as you say, you are sending innocent people in to get slaughtered by the Cthulhu mythos. So yeah, it's always fascinating. I mean, a lot of players, more experienced players, kind of know and accept this and don't tend to involve the police. So this particular convention scenario, they're usually involving the emergency services to help innocent bystanders who have already been involved in the plot. And it is interesting to see the difference in willingness on sort of like cannon fodder versus, oh, these are innocent people who need help. We need to take care of it. And of course, if they're not ringing the emergency services to help innocent people who've been hurt by the mythos, then again, yeah, maybe they should be suffering from sanity rolls, because they're willingly leaving people to suffer that they could get help for.
No, absolutely. Yeah. As I say, make technology work for you, not against you in the game. If it's a car, it might break down. If it's GPS, maybe it sends you on a red herring chase, or actually helps you to move the plot along. It tells you where the cultists are. You know, you've tracked their car somehow. Great. Well, you now know where they are. You still got to deal with it. You still got to, work out how to deal with it. All it is move the plot along, in hopefully a helpful fashion. So there you go. Don't be sorry. Go on, Lynn.
We say, classic example: have the cultists remember to turn off their location thing when they've been posting to their secret Facebook group that you've managed to hack into.
Well, yeah. Let's not forget the cultists are intelligent too, in that regard. Definitely. Well, there you go. That's a little bit on technology. So thanks, Lynn. See you all again soon.